it's almost like a whole paradigm shift, and you feel like I can't look at the world the same way anymore. You helped me to just climb a little bit, which shifted my perspective, which took my belief from here to here. So suddenly what I saw or felt could be possible for me was entirely different. I kept holding myself back. Not only was it that like, oh, maybe I could do this. Oh, no, I'm not good enough. Like I wasn't even having those ideas.
For someone who is confident, where does the lack of confidence play into that?
It reminds me of a saying that
great having you in the collective. Obviously, you know that I really value your input and everything else
I'm not that cool,
with
thanks.
it. What do you think changed, like for you, when you know, just even in your thought process? Because you've done a lot, and I know everybody in the group knows, especially when they were there at the very beginning, kind of seen you grow into this just a different person in the last 3 months. You know, and the way that you put things in perspective for yourself, but you still ask questions. What do you think changed there? What was the thing that upgraded for you, I guess?
Yeah, it's really crazy. I feel like there are a few sort of pivotal moments in my life where those moments where you have it's almost like a whole paradigm shift, and you feel like I can't look at the world the same way anymore. And I felt like I had that after a few conversations with you, maybe our first round table. And I was only reflecting on this with, a personal mentor that I have. And he's helped me work through a number of things. A lot of it's been related to, confidence, really. I felt like that's been a big thing that's held me back a lot. And I was sharing with him, like, he said to me, he's like, Loz, like, I'm just so stoked because how you show up on our calls now is like, it's just blowing my mind. It's nothing like 6 months ago when you were getting on calls. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, just your energy, the way you're talking, it's just so different. And I shared with him that I've had a couple moments recently that were a bit uncomfortable because I'm not used to having like really confident thoughts. And I'm starting to have them where it's like, I know my shit. And, a belief that like, I don't, the gap between where I am now, where I want to go, a couple months ago, it's like just struggling to see there's just a disconnect there. And then because of that, it's like, feel confident and right. But it's like, I feel like I have that now.
Yeah.
And that's been wild. And the reason I said it's uncomfortable is I'm just not used to thinking that way. And part of you is like, oh yeah, when will this last? Because I know that, at times I've been confident and then you're like, oh, I'm awful, I'll never amount to anything. And then you're up again. But it's just been this like kind of consistent where I'm like, no, I know my shit. And can and will do cool things. And it's just, that's probably been the biggest thing is like, my self-belief and my confidence. And I think maybe what I needed was to borrow a little bit of that, say from you, from our community, to go, okay, well, like, this is what I want. And, some suggestions of like, well, have you thought to try this or this? And then just through conversations that have happened, within a couple of months. And I'm just, everything like looks different in my life. But I guess the biggest thing is that sense of peace, that confidence, that belief. And I'm thinking a lot more from a place of how can I and what's possible. And just even in sales environments, like thinking about things differently based on conversations we've had or guests that you've introduced to us. And so I think that's probably, the personal shift, that's probably been the biggest one, I'd say. Having lots of opportunities instead of feeling like I have none.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. It's honestly the side benefit of what I put out there in the first place. because if I said that to somebody, they'd just laugh and go, "Oh, I don't need that. I need
Yeah.
something else." Oh, okay, cool. If that's what you want, here you go. You can have it, right?
Yeah. Sell them what they want, give them what they need, as they
Yeah, it's
say.
kind of the classic version of it. And I think
Yeah.
more and more people now are coming to me kind of for those perspective shifts. And some people who have come to talk to me and all they want is tactics and strategies, I've turned them away or just not talked about it at all, right? And I've just given them the tactic strategies. But you said something interesting a little bit about confidence. And I think this is quite normal for most people. I know I've had the same thing, but you kind of articulate
Yeah.
it differently. For someone who is confident, just generally speaking, just in life, sales, you have to, I think. Where does the lack of confidence play into that? Because it's a bit of it's an internal struggle where you are confident in one way, but not so confident in another way.
Yeah.
What's your thought on
Yeah.
that?
Well, it reminds me of a saying that, well, it was more of an analogy actually, that I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Coops.
No,
Yeah, he's like
no.
an OG
Yeah.
sniper, and he was a coach at JCF with
Mm.
James for a while there,
Yeah.
and he shared an analogy of kind of what it's like to adopt qualities or attributes, and he uses a superhero analogy, and he says like initially it's like when you're wanting to become more of something, let's say confident,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like your Iron Man. Like Tony Stark's only got the powers when he puts the suit on.
Yes.
He takes them off, he's just Tony again. And
Yeah.
then the second stage is kind of like the Hulk, like it's kind of part of him, but he can't control it. Sometimes he is, sometimes he isn't. You don't know.
Mm.
Today
Yeah.
I'm confident, today I'm not, right? And then he says sort of like completing that transition is like, I guess Superman, whether he's got the suit on or not, like he's Superman. He's got like the powers, they're like in him. So he sort of said that's the transition you go through, like an identity transition. And I was thinking about this maybe like, let's say 18 months ago. And I felt like my challenge was that, if you asked anybody to describe me, I don't think unconfident would be a word that they would use. I think confident would be a word that they would use.
Yes.
Which is really interesting because how people perceive me, whereas like I'm actually not. So I think what I'm really good at is sort of just putting on that suit. And so I think like what's changed is it's starting to, I guess, rather than maybe being in between Iron Man and Hulk, like I'm starting to transition between Hulk and Superman. And instead of acting confident, because to your point, you said being confident or no, if someone is confident. And I think acting or being, or certainly acting and just like you are, like they're very different things.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I can't necessarily tell you where the lack of confidence comes from in sales. I can certainly tell you where it comes from, but we don't have time to go back 30 and a half years, right? But I think like, where it shows up or where it was sort of showing up is certainly in sales conversations. That was a big one. Had to work through that, right? Like just constantly self-critiquing everything you're saying, and every result, whether it's good or bad, is a reflection of you and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
But then also I think it translated into like this big piece here where because of that lack of belief, and I think I shared that mountain analogy with you, like it's like you helped me to just climb a little bit, which shifted my perspective, which took my belief from here to here. So suddenly what I saw or felt could be possible for me was entirely different. And so without that though, I kept holding myself back. Not only was it that like, oh, maybe I could do this. Oh, no, I'm not good enough. Like I wasn't even having those ideas because of that way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's probably like the big one.
That's huge.
Yeah, so now I'm seeing more opportunities because I feel like if you don't have any belief at all, they're just I don't know, they're just kind of you don't you consciously just kind of like reject them, I suppose.
Yes.
And now I'm not consciously rejecting them, I'm seeing them, but then also I'm like, ooh, that could be possible. And then, there's certain things that have actually, followed through on
Come to fruition. Yeah,
and made happen. Yeah. Yeah.
that's really cool. I think you made a good point too about, you know, when people are thinking about certain things, what they can and can't do, uh, I think it comes from somewhere, right? Like all that comes from somewhere where you're maybe listening to your calls and you're critiquing, okay, that was good, that was not so good. Um, I think it comes from what you're exposed to in
Mm,
terms of how you view those things, right? So if someone
yeah.
tells you, Laura, when you get on calls, this is how it has to be so that you get X result, right?
Mm,
But you can either take that on and go and know yourself enough to go, well, actually, I know I did the right thing on that call
yeah.
because of these things. What do you think from I guess from a salesperson and a sales manager dynamic? Because that's where I see
Mm,
it the most,
mm-hmm.
where sales managers can push good salespeople away because they create too much doubt versus then the salesperson actually believing that they
Mm,
can do a really good job with, the way they can show up and
yeah.
all of those things. What's your take
That's,
on
I guess that's really
that?
interesting to me as well, because I think, again, it sort of almost comes back to the existing confidence level of that individual in the first place.
Yeah.
So I know for me, one of the things I kind of identified with the lack of confidence is that, I trust others' opinions more than my own.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially those that I look up to. So, like, and then you take someone who maybe does trust themselves, they've got a level of self belief, a level of
Mm,
confidence. Well, they're going to, I guess, interpret that information through completely different lenses. And so,
yeah.
I mean, let's just use me as an example from like maybe at the start of my sales career. I'd be
Mm,
very susceptible to that type of feedback,
yes.
and whereas, you take someone that kind of, yeah, has that trust, has that belief, has that confidence, they're probably going to question that more. And
Mm,
then it's more about a decision. Do I accept or do I reject that
yes.
versus like letting it affect them?
Yep.
Um, so I don't know
Yeah.
if that
Super
answers
true.
your question,
Yeah.
but that's kind of my
It
perspective on
does.
it. And then I think like, we could talk all day about, I guess, effective and ineffective leadership. But that's where it can, I guess it's maybe less so for the confident individual. I don't know. I
Mm,
can't
yeah.
relate. It's new for me, right?
Yeah.
But certainly for the unconfident individual, a leader or a manager could potentially sort of like make or break that if a person doesn't have a level of self awareness to
Yes.
question that advice and kind of make a decision for themselves.
Yep.
It could really, define their trajectory until
Oh,
such a point where they
100%.
develop that self awareness to go, oh my God,
100%.
like,
Mm,
why did I listen to that?
yeah.
So,
I
yeah, I
think that's
think
the key
that's,
piece with
yeah,
I was trying to get to, I guess, is
yeah,
like as a leader or as a mentor to somebody, you can make or break their career depending on what stage they're at and depending on, like you said, the gap from beginning to where they are, where they build that confidence. There's a bit of
mm,
work that you can do to shorten that, I think, with learning from others who have done it,
yeah,
as a new person, but also as a manager, the responsibility that you have to
hmm,
nurture talent or destroy talent, one of the two.
oh,
And I think
yeah,
that in
yeah.
itself is a skill, you know?
Yeah, and I think like my leadership style is certainly, I say empathetic. I'm not nice. I'm not let people off the hook. It's like I have expectations, but the way that I try to get engagement, compliance is like hey, like I'm here to help you. Like
Mm,
my door is open. I will put energy and effort into making sure that you succeed. However, like I'm sure as
mm,
you're aware, like I can't put energy and effort into you if you're not willing to put it into yourself. And it's not fair
yeah.
on the people that are. Like,
Yes.
I have to direct that energy to them. So it's like that's sort of the stance that I always take is I'm very firm on like I want to see you win because it's true.
Mm,
But also, I have a limit for how much I'm going to help someone if they're just not willing to
to
help
help themselves.
themselves. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, and then there's the opposite. Sometimes you have leaders that are sort of like too nice. They're friends maybe with their reps. And then, but you've got the other end as well, which is a little bit more older age, maybe managers where it's like fear and, and, do this. And I think that, I mean, there's different things work for different people, but I guess that's the type of leadership that I naturally sit in. And I find that, I mean, it works, fairly well. But again, everybody's not the same. So sometimes you need to turn the dial up a little bit more on the firmness, or sometimes you've got to turn the dial up a little bit on the, hey, I'm here for you,
Yeah.
right? Depending on sort of where they are, I guess, in the buying pocket.
Yeah, that's the dance.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah,
has to be in the buying
exactly.
pocket. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really cool.